Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com, and this is a comparison between the Canon R6 Mark II and the Canon R6 Mark III. But this video also serves a bunch of different purposes because we have the original R6 over here because there's a lot of R6 owners who have been asking, what should I upgrade to? The R6 Mark II or the R6 Mark III? And we're gonna help you figure that out throughout this video. But I also have a Canon R8 over here because there might be some R8 owners or people that might consider getting an R8 over something like this, but we'll get into that throughout this video. Now, before we get too far, I do want to say that I have real-world hands-on reviews as well as previews of both of these cameras right here, where we go extensive throughout the specs and the details and real-world usage. So those are linked down below. I also have a user guide for each one of these cameras. Now, a user guide is something that we put out when a new camera comes out, and it is free, where we help you set up the camera exactly how I would set it up and explain all of the buttons and as many of the features as possible in the menu so that you can hit the ground running and start getting good images as well as video. Those are linked down below. But now let's jump into this comparison to help you decide which one should you buy or which one should you upgrade to. First things first, let's start with the sensors inside of these cameras. With the R6 Mark II, we have a 24.2 megapixel full frame CMOS sensor, which is also, as a side note, the same sensor you find in the Canon R8. In terms of the R6 Mark III, you have a brand new 32.5 megapixel full frame CMOS sensor. It has a faster readout speed than the R6 Mark II. There's a 34% megapixel increase from the R6 Mark II, which is over a 50% increase from the original one. For anybody who was wondering, this original R6 is 20 megapixels. So we have 20 megapixels, 24 megapixels, 32.5 megapixels, and this is the same exact sensor as the R6 Mark II. Now, I like to give check marks here. Check marks don't mean actually, they mean nothing, but I like to try to say which one is the better one in this case. And for the first check mark, we're gonna go with the R6 Mark III for the bump in resolution as well as the faster readout speed, which is something that is pretty important in the game of using electronic shutters. Generally speaking, the higher the megapixels, the more noise you start to introduce at higher ISOs, because more megapixels means smaller amount of pixels. They don't gather as much light as when it's a less amount of megapixels on the same size of a sensor. You are gathering more, so you generally get better low light capability with less megapixels. Now let's look at the R6 Mark II. The ISO range is 100 to 102,400 natively, expandable all the way up to 204,800. The R6 Mark III is native 100 to 64,000, expandable up to 102,400. There is a slight, roughly 2/3 of a stop difference when it comes to the ISO capability here. Now, what I will tell you is that they are very similar and very close. I took the R6 Mark III out into the real world to photograph at a Modest Yahoo concert, as well as before a show or also in his tour bus, and I bumped the ISO up pretty high, and the images are perfectly usable and look fantastic to me. It's going to be very similar between these two bodies, but what I will tell you is I will go ahead and give a check mark to the R6 Mark II because of the fact that it is expandable higher when it comes to the native ISO, meaning it's 2/3 of a stop better. Slight, minor, but we'll give it the check mark. Now, when you take the sensors and the ISO capabilities into consideration, you are getting fantastic results across the board with both of these cameras. They are going to be fantastic for stills as well as video, and we're gonna get into the video details, but both of them deserve a round of check marks. So here's a round check mark in honor of both of them being fantastic. One of the things that people want to know about cameras is how many frames per second can you shoot? Well, these cameras do exactly the same thing with some minor caveats. Now, in terms of shooting with a mechanical shutter, they both have mechanical shutters and give you 12 frames per second with that. In terms of using the electronic shutter, they both do 40 frames per second. They both offer something called pre-continuous shooting, but they do it in two different ways. The R6 Mark II was one of the first to introduce introduced this pre-continuous shooting option, but they did it in such a weird, non-usable way that I personally would never recommend using because it just took too long and it just didn't make sense. But since the Canon R5 Mark II is out in the world and the Canon R1 are out into the world, they've given this the same pre-capture capability, which means this pre-capture function is fantastic. Let me explain to you how it works. So when you activate it, you have to be in silent shooting mode in the H+, the highest mode. What happens is when you are focused on something and your finger is pressed halfway down, the camera is going to be buffering up to 20 images because it's for a half a second. The camera can shoot at 40 frames per second, so a half a second is 20 frames that are being buffered. If you keep your finger halfway down on the button and you then take pictures without taking your finger off, it saves those 20 pre-captured images and anything you shoot after that directly to the card. A prime example of where this comes in handy is with a baseball player, where you kind of can wait to see if they swing before you take the picture, because if they don't swing, you don't need to burn any of the files, but if they do start their swing, you can then go ahead with your finger halfway down, press it fully, and go back in time and retrieve those images from the past. Where this also comes in handy is if you're a bird photographer or a wildlife or nature photographer, the R6 Mark III with this pre-capture function is going to be the one that you're going to want. For example, if you're trying to capture a bird in flight or a bird that's about to eat or stalk something, you can be pre-capturing the whole time while you're focusing on it, and if the bird makes a sudden move, well, you were already pre-capturing and you can go back and get that. You're gonna have a much more difficult time trying to do this, so you're gonna trust me here. If you're a nature and wildlife photographer, checkmark is going here all day for that professional pre-capture capability. Let me jump in here real quick and let you know that this video is brought to you by Squarespace. If you're looking to build your very own online portfolio to share all the photos that you're capturing with a camera like this, well, use what I use for my personal website at jaredpolin.com for the last 15 years. I use Squarespace because it's simple, easy, affordable, and I don't need to know any coding. Just drag and drop and it's ready to go out into the world. To get your 14-day free trial, head on over to squarespace.com/FronosPhoto. If you decide that it's for you, use the code FronosPhoto at checkout to get 10% off your first order. Now, let's get back to the video. Since we just talked about pre-capture and all of those images that you'll be capturing, how many frames can you shoot in a row before you outrun the buffer? Well, let's talk about that right now. You can get 75 raw files when shooting with the electronic shutter at 40 frames per second with the R6 Mark II. You can get 110 raw files when shooting with the mechanical shutter at 12 frames per second. With the R6 Mark III, you're basically doubling that according to Canon. They say you get 150 raw files when shooting with the electronic shutter at 40 frames per second, and nearly infinite when shooting with the mechanical shutter at 12 frames per second. Now that's Canon saying you'll get 150 raw files. In my real world experience, I held the shutter button down for 5 seconds, and that's when it filled the buffer. And in some other situations, we were able to get 8 seconds. So I guess it depends on the situation that you're in, but we found that you get more than the 150 by far. So we're gonna give 5 billion check marks to this camera. Now, the reason the R6 Mark III can shoot longer with RAW is because of the card slots that they moved to. You now have one CF Express B card slot and an SD card slot. Whereas with the R6 Mark II, you have dual SD card slots. CF Express B cards are super fast. They've come down in price. They're basically the same price as good SD cards. We use pro-grade digital here. Only buy reputable brands of cards when you are buying cards for your cameras. The last thing you want to have happen is have a card failure because you use some no-name China brand card. Be very careful when you do that. But the CF Express cards, the B cards, so much faster when it comes to shooting, and also faster when transferring data to your computers. Moving on to one of the most important things to photographers these days, and that is autofocus capabilities. These have the same exact autofocus systems into them. Now, the only difference here is the update into the R6 Mark III is Canon has added more focus algorithms to recognize some different subjects into this camera. I find that they are very similar, and maybe you could give a slight edge to the R6 Mark III, but they are both going to be fantastic in every situation that you throw it in, from portraits to sports to wildlife, nature. They're both going to be great, so it's kind of hard to give a check mark here because they both have great focusing systems. Since we're on the subject of autofocus, if you have an original R6, there is going to be a major difference when you jump to the R6 Mark II and the R6 Mark III. One of the main differences is that you didn't have auto detect of the subjects here, meaning if you're shooting people or animals or planes or whatever, it didn't do a good job of doing the auto detect. That has been added to these cameras. Now, the R8 is going to give you the same exact autofocus as the R6 Mark II. So yeah, is it a worthy upgrade in terms of autofocus to jump up to one of these? The answer to that question is yes. Now this is where we hit a fork in the road. The proverbial fork in the road, not the one from the Muppets.
Yes, sir, turn left at the fork in the road.
Where there was literally a fork in the road. I love that part of the movie. They're like, it's a fork in the road. I just love that girl with that floppy hair. She was so stoned, it wasn't even funny. She was just like, yeah, man, there's a fork in the road. And I'm like, yeah, well, there's a fork in the road right here when we look at both of these cameras when it comes to video. So bear with me. There's a lot of specs to go over for this. So let's start with the R6 Mark II. It has full frame UHD 4K video recording at up to 60 frames per second, which is oversampled from 6K. Now keep in mind that 10-bit 422 is only available in C-Log 3. Now you're limited to IPB compression. You can do external raw video output in full frame 10-bit 6K or Super 35 12-bit 3.7K up to 60 frames per second. It also does full frame 1080p up to 180 frames per second, but with no audio. It offers C-Log 3, as well as movie pre-recording, false colors, focus breathing correction, digital hot shoe for wireless audio, and a micro HDMI port. This is a very competent video shooting camera, even when you put it up next to this bad boy right here. But the R6 Mark III goes above and beyond because in essence, it uses the same innards of Canon's C50 cinema camera. Now, if you're interested in learning more about the C50 cinema camera, we do have a full hands-on preview in the real world of that camera as well, where we hit on all of the details and specs and show you those real world examples. That is linked down below. Just understand that 90% of what's in that camera is found in this camera as well. All right, here we go. It has full frame DCI 4K video recording at up to 60 frames per second, which is oversampled from 7K. 10-bit 422 can be achieved in all video modes, unlike the R6 Mark II. So you don't need to be in log to get that. You can also record 12-bit 7K RAW internally this time, up to 60p, with sub-recording available to the SD card. What that means is you're getting raw video saved to the CF Express B card slot, and you're getting the compressed video saved to the SD card slot, so you're basically getting the best of both worlds. One of the biggest features here is that you can do open gate recording, which records the full 3.2 sensor from top to bottom at 7K up to 30p. You now have 120p in 4K up from 1080p, but it now has audio. So not only do you get the higher resolution, but you also get that with audio, unlike before. Now, if you need to go higher, you can shoot at 1080p up to 180 frames per second. It has a new mode on top of the camera called slow and fast, which is around the mode dial, which allows you to fine-tune slow motion recording. It has a simplified video menu now. Instead of listing every resolution and frame rate, now it matches the cinema line with XFAVC, HEVC, and RAW formats along with C-Log 2 and C-Log 3. You also have intra-compression versus just IPB in the R6 Mark II. You have the waveforms, you have a dual base ISO of 800 and 6400, movie pre-recording, false colors, focus breathing correction, digital hot shoe, and different from the R6 Mark II is you have a full HDMI port on the side of the camera. Woo! That's a lot. This is a loaded camera when it comes to video features. So if you are coming from an R6 original and video is your game, this might be the direction that you want to go and get the best of both worlds when it comes to stills. But this is loaded and packed with cinema video features, just like the Canon C50. With that being said, the R6 Mark II is still a viable video capturing device. If you are already getting fantastic results with this, and maybe you're not doing a ton of video, there might not be a reason for you to jump to the R6 Mark III. So just also keep in mind that when it comes to shooting video, a lot comes down to, do you know what you're doing? And are you a good editor? Because a lot of the stuff is made better when you finish it in post. But both of these are fantastic cameras, but we're gonna go ahead and give this a C check mark because it's very cinema-centric. Let me jump in here real quick because I wanna show you FroPack 4 in action on this photo right here, taken with a Canon, starting with Blue's Clues, followed by Brooklyn, C41, Copper Tone, High C, Kaleidoscope, Mel Brooks, Saltwater Taffy, Thick, Tintype, and Wet Hot American Summer. But check this out, my all-time favorite from FroPack 1 is Skittles. With one click of a button, we go boom. But check this out, exclusive and all new to FroPack 4, we've got 4 custom adaptive Lightroom presets that include Face Enhance, Full Body Enhance, Eye Only Enhance, as well as Background Blur. So look, if you want to speed up your raw workflow, give yourself a great starting point, or you're just tired of other people's presets sucking, ours don't suck. We've created 14 all-new custom Lightroom presets that you can check out right now at fronosphoto.com/FroPack4. While you're over there, you can play with the sliders to see the befores and the afters, and if you decide to pick them up right now, they are currently on sale. Or if you want to get the Grand Slam bundle that includes FroPack 1, 2, 3, and 4, and of course Skittles, you will save even more. Now, let's get back to the video. Since we have the R8 up here, you basically have the same video features as the R6 Mark II. The only difference you're gonna see is that you can't do raw recording with this. And also battery life, you have a smaller battery where you don't have a smaller battery here. You have image stabilization here. You don't have image stabilization there, as well as one card slot. So those are your minor differences right there. Since I just mentioned the R8, and in-body image stabilization being absent from it, we know that the R6 Mark II has it, the R6 Mark III has it. The only difference is you have 8 stops here and 8.5 stops here, which means what, Steven? How many check marks does this one get?
Half.
A half, you're right. A half a check mark for better image stabilization. Now let's talk about the bodies, and we're not talking about this body right here, which, look at these guns. Look at these. These bodies, you know how many check marks these get? 8 billion, because they're great arms. The bodies are very similar. They are basically, for all intent and purposes, the same design. If you have a grip for the R6 Mark II, you're going to be able to use it on the R6 Mark III. I can't recall a time where Canon lets you do something like that, but the fact that it works on both is a big win. If you're upgrading and you already have the grip, you can save some money. Now, one of the differences you will find is you have a tally lamp on the front of this camera, as well as around the screen, where you don't have a tally lamp here, but you do have the tally lamp around the screen. As I mentioned before, you have a slow and fast option on the top of this camera on the mode dial, where you don't have it on this, which is just better for more quickly getting to your slow motion options. One of the biggest feature additions to the R6 Mark III is the ability to, with one press of a button, deactivate or activate pre-capture. The reason I bring that up is because the more expensive R5 Mark II and the much more expensive R1 do not offer that feature at the time of recording this. Maybe it will be updated in firmware, but this straight out of the box gives you that option. You don't have a one press option for that in the R6 Mark II for its not very good pre-capture option. Now, when it comes to the viewfinder and the LCD screens on this camera, they're exactly the same. They were exactly the same when it was the R6 original, so not much has changed there. They're still very good. Would I like to see a res bump in the future? Sure, but it doesn't really matter, and it's not going to hinder your shooting ability. And as I already mentioned, the bodies are very, very similar across the board. But where you will find a difference is the type of battery that these cameras use. They use the same battery slot, but with the R6 Mark II, you're using an LPE6NH battery, and you do have USB-C charging. And with the R6 Mark III, you have an LPE6P battery, which is a more powerful battery. You can use that battery in the R6 Mark II, but if you put the R6 Mark II's battery into the R6 Mark III, you can still use it, but it's going to limit some of the shooting functions that you have. Let me jump in here real quick and say, are you struggling to get clean, crisp, and clear images in low light situations? Well, if you raised your hand and said, yeah, that's me, well, I have a free guide to capturing motion in low light situations that you can get right now for free over at fronosphoto.com. Just look for this orange box, put your name, email address in it, hit send it. I'm going to send you that guide for free. So now we get to the price, which is of course different. At the time of recording this, the R6 Mark II is currently on sale for $2,099, which was normally $2,299. The R6 Mark III comes in at $2,799. So if my math is correct, the difference is $700. So yes, $700 is a big difference, but I still think this priced at $27.99 for what you're getting from it is really good. And $20.99 for this is not bad at all. It is still a viable camera today on the market. And as I said at the beginning of this video, I'm here to help you decide if you already have an R6 Mark II, should you buy an R6 Mark III? Or if you have an original R6, should you jump to an R6 Mark II at this point or go to an R6 Mark III? I'm gonna start there. If you've waited this long and you are looking to stay in the R6 lineup, I would probably spend the extra money and really get the most bang for your buck, because if you're gonna have it for as long as you've had this camera, I would just go for it. Now, if you don't already have really good glass, maybe it's a good option to save that $700 and take that money and get some better RF glass, because I'd rather have you save money on the body but get better glass. I'm a big fan of glass. You could have the most expensive camera in the world with the worst glass, or the less expensive camera but with the best glass, and you're probably going to end up with better results when you focus in on glass. So it's not a bad option to consider upgrading to this and investing some money into those RF lenses. For those people who were waiting to see what the R6 Mark III had to offer, who already had the R6 Mark II, they might be saying to themselves, well, why would I go up? There's not a ton of differences. But if you're a video shooter, there are a ton of differences. So I would consider jumping up if it's from the video world to go from the R6 II to the R6 III. But if you already have an R6 II, I mean, it's hard to tell you to dump it and get this when they are very similar, especially on the stills side. Yeah, there's a resolution difference, but I don't think that's gonna make that much of a difference. If you need that pre-capture and you're a wildlife bird shooter, then absolutely take that jump. That is going to get you things that you otherwise would have missed with this. So yeah, it's worth it in those situations. Now, if you have an R8, remember, it has the same internals as the R6 Mark II, so everything I just said still applies. Let me cut in here and say, are you looking for real professional feedback about your images because you're tired of your friends and family giving you thumbs up emojis and fire emojis, and that's the only feedback you get? Well, I offer two different mentorships. One option is a 15-minute recorded rapid fire critique of your best 50 images, and the other is a one-on-one 45-minute Zoom call with me where I'll give you as much feedback as possible throughout that time. To sign up for a mentorship and to learn more, head on over to fronosphoto.com/mentorship, and I hope to help you out soon. Now, to the biggest question that this video is meant to answer is, if you were starting today in the Canon ecosystem between these two cameras, the R6 Mark II or the R6 Mark III, which direction should you go? And the answer to that is, I mean, I would go with the newest one for a couple of $100 more. I know it's more than a couple of $100 more, but it is well worth it to future-proof it now that you get all of the latest and greatest features. Now, if money is a little bit of a concern, which it might be, and you might not be able to invest in glass if you buy this straight up, well, another great option is looking at used or refurbished R6 Mark IIs. They should be coming down in price the further we get from the time that this video is released because refurbs will go down in price, and if it's refurb direct from Canon at a certain price, then used prices have to be less than that. So just keep in mind, purchase from reputable places. Don't look at Amazon, don't look at eBay. I don't recommend going there to buy your used cameras. That's more of a crapshoot. So if you spend $1,600 on a body like this, and you can put $1,000 into good RF lenses, I think that is a really good place to go. But starting today, nature, wildlife, those people that need that pre-capture, 40 frames per second, and just the faster readout speed, and of course, if you're doing video, the big difference is the C50 is $1,000 more than this bad boy. So you get the best bang for your buck with this here, one of the greatest cameras that Canon has ever put out. It is unbelievable all the way around, from stills to video and everywhere in between. Now, if you're deciding on this, which one would you go with and why? Don't forget to let me know down below. Thank you very much for watching. Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com. See ya.